Ignite CDA board meeting for May. If we could all rise, please, and for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we have a time for public comment. Anybody with public comment, please? We have your name and address, please.
My name is Amy Lyons, and as a Midtown resident, I'm here to advocate for the Midtown green space. The green space and the parking lots are an obvious anchor for Midtown businesses, and with minimal effort, this can be turned into an inviting outdoor space for everyone, the residents of Midtown, visitors to our city, and of course, the businesses, of which there are many old and new. Redo the parking lots, water the grass, add some lights. The trees, the street trees, and the crosswalks are already in place. So I think this would be a low-impact, exciting, and nimble use of the city's property as the district winds down. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Yes, sir.
I'm Ken Murphy. I live at 513 North Park. I'm going to throw around some numbers, so I thought I'd give them to you just in case it does interest you.
Okay. Thank you.
What I want to talk about is the properties on North Park. I live right across the street from them. You guys have gone ahead and leveled them, and it's lovely now. You can see there's some gorgeous trees. It's undeveloped. I think it should be a park and stay a park, as it was, I believe it was originally done. Okay, the Coeur d'Alene Park Master Plan, 2006, there was a survey, and it was a valid statistical survey done with random sampling techniques. Most residents of this city use the parks. City Park is the city's most visited park. More than 95% of the people surveyed feel that the natural areas are important. Natural open space is the park type most respondents indicated are the most needed in Coeur d'Alene. Crowding is an issue in both parks and recreational facilities. I've been there for 5 years. I was there during Ironman, 4th of July, Art on the Green. It's the only place in the city where it's restricted parking. There's no place to park. It doesn't make sense to crowd it more by putting 10 more houses there where it does not need to be. At least 2/3, by the standards within the master plan, at least 2/3 of a park site should be available for active recreation use. Relatively level, free of environmental constraints, with adequate buffers to separate active recreation areas from nearby homes. Buffer space, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, I'm a financial person. Let's talk about the wonderful way the city's managed, and do they really need more money? No, they don't. 2016 financial plan. Two statements are important in financial plans: a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement. Balance sheet, what you have. The other part of the balance is who owns it. Coeur d'Alene has $366 million in assets, $55 million in liabilities, 311 net. There are 311 to the good. Of that, 26 million is unrestricted. A piggy bank can be used for anything you want. Where's that come from? It comes from the wonderful operations of this city. 66 million in revenues last year, 60 million expenses, so they're to the good 6.5 million. This is a pattern over the last 4 years. They were to the good 7 million in 15, 10 million in 14, 15 million in 13. So the city is well operated and not in grave need of more money. For Ignite CDA, you guys have got about 17 million in your balance sheet. You got about 9 million in liabilities. So your assets exceed liabilities, or what's called net worth or owner's equity, by about 8 million. Of that, almost 6 is unrestricted, over 6. You can use for anything you want. According to the Coeur d'Alene Comprehensive Plan, which is 20-year plan, 2007, the vision for Coeur d'Alene is a beautiful, safe city that promotes high quality of life and a sound economy through excellence in government. Its first and third goals are to support policies that preserve the beauty and natural environment, enhance the beauty of Coeur d'Alene, and preserve the qualities that make Coeur d'Alene a great place to live. The Coeur d'Alene Parks Recreation Master Plan says the Coeur d'Alene area is blessed with a natural environment that includes forests, rivers, lakes, and mountains. As a growing resort town, Coeur d'Alene parks are a precious asset that must be properly managed. That's you guys, properly managed and developed for many visitors now and in the future. As the population increases and land becomes more valuable, natural spaces will tend to become increasingly marginalized in the face of development. We stand steadfast in defense of the countless virtues of our many parks, which promote an active, healthy lifestyle and provide recreation for residents of our city. Coeur d'Alene sees itself as the jewel of the Northwest. Please, let's keep it that way. Any questions? And thank you for the opportunity. I used to teach politics, and it's just so cool you guys do this. You allow people to talk.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Approval of minutes, please, for the April board meeting and the May special call meeting. 2 separate action items.
I move to approve the April 19th, 2017 board meeting minutes as prepared.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to approve the May 10th, 2017 special call board meeting minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. That motion carries. Next, Nicole is going to give us a presentation on the Community Performing Arts Center. I think we all have received a copy also. Thank you for that. You're welcome.
So thank you for welcoming me here today. Can you hear? Is that better? You can hear. Okay, great. So early this year, maybe even last fall, Ignite contacted CDA 2030 to help gauge the community interest in a performing arts center. And this was following the proposal from the Modern Theater in Midtown. So CDA 2030 approached this activity by working with our implementation committee to create a subcommittee that would really work on just connecting with the existing performance arts organizations in our community, as well as existing facilities and those who might use the Performance Arts Center, maybe not actually being a performance arts organization, but still being able to use a space like that. So our subcommittee approached this task by initially conducting a questionnaire to those organizations and then hosting a facilitated meeting. Lastly, we drafted the report that's in front of you today, and I'll just go through that just to share what we found and field any questions that you might have. So to start with the questionnaire was initially developed to help make our meeting more efficient. We knew that there would be a lot of organizations there. We wanted to make sure we collected data about how they were operating and what their interests might be. So not only were we able to help facilitate the meeting through this, but we really did collect a lot of specific data that couldn't be shared out in a facilitated meeting setting. We contacted 28 performance arts organizations and related organizations in our community. We tried to be extremely inclusive. We even asked the ones that we invited if we were missing anyone. So really worked to try to include the big organizations like Summer Theater, all the way down to small dance studios that might use a facility like this. With the questionnaire, we received 14 responses from March 6th to April 10th. And the complete responses can be found in that report, Appendix A. So if you want to see the specific responses to the questions, that's where you'll find them. But now I'll just kind of go broadly over what we found. As you can see up on the screen, most organizations cited that they currently use the Kroc Center, the Salvation Army Kroc Center Theater, Schuler Performing Arts Center, and this space right here, the library community room, for their performances and rehearsals. When asked if the current facility that they use meets their needs, 79% of them said no. There was various reasons why they said this. Most indicated that the space was not large enough, that it was not available, they had scheduling conflicts, it wasn't affordable. One organization indicated that it was too large, and they were referring to Schuler being about 1,100 seats. And then others said they didn't want to be affiliated with a religion, so if they were rehearsing in a church facility or even with the Kroc Center, they just didn't want to have that association. We also asked how interested they would be in a performance arts center that would be community oriented, and most people indicated a rate of 8.5, that they'd be very interested in what this might be. We also asked, ideally, what size of venue would you like? As you can see, the numbers are pretty spread out, but most indicated that they were looking for something that was in between 400 and 600 seats. So the Kroc right now is approximately 400 seats, and Schuler Hall is just over 1,100 seats. So you can kind of see that they're looking just slightly bigger than the Kroc Center, most people. But as you can see, there's some that want a really large facility and others that want an even smaller black box-like facility. We also tried to figure out scheduling conflicts. So we asked about their performance schedules. As you can see on this graphic, most respondents were pretty vague about when they actually performed. So I would stress that more data is really needed to indicate when there's conflicts. But as you can see, late summer and in December, there's a lot of overlap with performances, which is not surprising. So we also asked, what are your concerns surrounding a new center? And these were the top. Affordability. Is the center going to be so state-of-the-art that it's not going to be affordable for our organization to rent? Availability. Are we going to run into issues that everyone is going to be trying to book these facilities late summer and in December around the holidays? Size. How do we accommodate everyone's wishes? As you saw, there were a lot of people looking at the 400 to 600 seat range, but it was respondents pretty spread out. And then resources. How do we fit everyone's needs? So for a dance studio versus an orchestra or a theater, how do we make sure that there's the resources we need in order to produce excellent performances? And then lastly, impact. How will this new facility, if it's implemented, hurt other existing facilities like the Kroc Center and Schuler? Other concerns were creative restrictions, like such as at the Kroc Center, you're unable to produce specific performances because of their religious ties. ADA access, funding and sustainability, how are we going to keep this facility going? Operations and staff, who's going to run it, who's going to maintain it, and then advertising, that kind of comes up more in the report, but basically branding for the entire community about performances that are happening. So some other information we found is most organizations produce less than 10 performances a year, but we do have the rare 30 to 50 performances, and those are mainly coming from people like the Coeur d'Alene Library that their performances range as far as how developed they are and how much time is put into props and those kind of activities and rehearsal activities. Many do not have a long-term contract with a facility, and some who are actually facilities indicated that they might use a performance arts center even though they have their own facility if the size was differing from what they were working with. And then most are looking for a state-of-art facility for as far as amenities with a stage that has fly space, wing space, excellent sound and lighting, as well as other things that go along with the theater, like the rigging system to lift people. Some indicated an orchestra pit, storage is a big thing, dressing rooms, as well as lobby and ticketing spaces, in-house technology staff, concessions, specifically including concessions that could serve adult beverages, and then lots of parking for people. So moving on to the meeting, we invited all 28 individuals that we invited to participate in the questionnaire to also attend a meeting on April 12th. And we had 13 organizations represented. 28 attendees were there, and as you can see, they're listed on the screen, as well as 2 people from Ignite, so we're happy to have you. The meeting was only 1 hour, so we really just scratched the surface of what the community's interest and needs were for the facility. But we also, like I said, used the data that we previously collected to kind of start the conversation. So the whole meeting was tracked, and you can see in Appendix B how people responded to questions, but we basically asked 4 questions. What are the opportunities? How could a performance arts center allow organizations to expand and prosper? Then logistics. How does it look for a performance arts community center to exist under one roof? So how does it work if summer theater and CYT have crossover? Management. Who is the ideal candidate to operate the facility and why? And then affordability. Could the organizations that were attending make things pencil if it was more expensive because they have more opportunities to put on bigger productions or have more seats? So the key themes really were that there's a lack of visibility currently for performance arts organizations here in Coeur d'Alene, and this would really help bolster what's going on and encourage other organizations to really rally together to really make it Coeur d'Alene known for performance arts. And then the idea, of course, was overwhelmingly supported by all the organizations, even from facilities, existing facilities like Schuler and Kroc Center. They mentioned that, especially the Kroc Center, that they're unable to actually book people because they're full. They also felt like that would help with Point A, really making a brand for Coeur d'Alene and performance arts. And then there were questions raised, even though we were trying not to go too far into details of whether this should be an indoor or outdoor facility, especially because we're lakeside. So real quickly, I'll go over 3 profiles of community performing arts centers that were listed in the meeting. If you look on page 8, there's about 10 different venues that are listed, and these are just ones that organically came up in conversation as examples, either in the survey or in the meeting. So the information, unfortunately, that I'm providing you in these profiles was all found online. My intern and I have spent over 2 weeks trying to contact people from all these organizations with no response. So it must be spring break for the performance arts. First, I'm going to start with Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza, and that's in California, located fairly close to Los Angeles. This facility is city-owned. It's a very substantial facility. It has 2 theaters, it has offices, retail space, ice rinks, classrooms, multi-purpose rooms. Speaking up to the theaters, the two theaters are 1,800 seats, and then there's a smaller one that's approximately 400 seats. I collected this information from a city staff report and then the Los Angeles Times and the Thousand Oaks Acorn. If you want the sources that I received it from, I'd be happy to share that with you. But what I understand is in 1994, the facility cost $86 million to build. Most of the funding came from, actually approximately 75% of the funding came from bonds and internal loans from the city. They also spent some of the city capital fund and some of the reserve funds from the city. In conjunction with this, a $10 million endowment was established to help cover ongoing expenses for the facility, and it's my understanding that these are from private and corporate donations. 9 years later, naming rights were sold for the facility at $4.25 million to Bank of America. And then, 13 years down the road, so last June, they decided to really restructure. So the City Council approved the merging of the Arts Alliance, which was really the fundraising arm for this center, and the Thousand Oaks Art Foundation, which is the programming arm, making sure that the facility is in use and bringing in headliners, in conjunction with donating $4 million from their general funds to the endowment, bringing it up to $14 million. So now the endowment is expected to generate $700,000 annually to cover expenses. In this first year, which is a transition time, that $700,000 and an estimated $80,000 are the expected revenues for the facility. Estimated expenses for this first year are at $872,000, 150 of those being transitional costs to do the merger and become established in this manner. The next is the Everett Performance Arts Center in Everett, Washington. This facility is also city-owned and supported. And on their website, they indicate that it's a service to the city. So that leads me to believe it's not generating money, but it has great community impact. This facility has just over 500 seats, auditorium space, including everything that our community is asking for as far as sound system, fly space, rigging systems, wing space, a costume shop, as well as multi-purpose rooms and a spacious lobby area that can be used for a range of events. Since 1998, the Village Theater has managed this facility for the city of Everett. And what I have found that dealing with operations and costs is there is a general obligation bond out there, which was established in 1993, but other than that, I have no information about the costs to build the facility or ongoing operations. The last profile is the Allen Elizabethan Theater, and this is in Ashland, Oregon. Originally, this facility was built in 1935, so it's quite old. It's gone through a number of renovations. It is owned by the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, which is a nonprofit. It seats approximately 1,200 people, and it's an outdoor venue. So it operates June through October. It has orchestra seating, balcony seating, and concessions. And recently, in 2013, the Paul G. Allen Family Foundation purchased naming rights for $3 million. Again, I have no specific numbers on how much this costs to build, and it actually is quite hard to track because it has had so many renovations. But it is indicated on their website that the organization is strongly supported by corporate and individual donors. So next steps. I mean, if you decide to proceed with moving forward with this information, I would recommend that a comprehensive list of partners are developed and really builds into a steering committee. Conducting a feasibility study to find out more about size, location, amenities, management, which all are directly correlated to cost, will help kind of narrow down what our community is looking at and what it might mean, what the impact might mean for Coeur d'Alene. What we did find going through this process, which is very positive, is we have a number of community members who have either been involved with the process. We actually have 2 community members that sat on the Thousand Oaks Steering Committee, as well as some that have operated facilities and others that have really business-minded look at how an organization like this would run. We also, during discussion, found that this really needs to be a multi-sector project, you know, including higher education and city parks. It could be bigger than what even the modern proposal was. So at this time, I will answer any questions or at least take notes to follow up with you if you want specific information about the details that we've looked into.
Questions for Nicole?
I think you did a good job.
Yeah, very great presentation. It was a great meeting, too. It was fun to be there.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Nicole, could you identify, maybe not, but any of these projects need a driver, right? In the Modern Theater project, they were going to drive the fundraising, they were going to be the leader. Any of those people indicate to you that they would be willing to step up and be the leader of a program like that?
There was no strong indication of that.
'Cause that's,
I think everyone's very excited, but I'm not sure that capacity or leadership is there.
yeah, because that's what this project, if a project like this was going to get off the ground, it's going to need some nonprofit to be the driver of it. The city and urban renewal could probably get involved at some level, but it's going to need someone to step up and lead the project, or drive the bus, so to speak.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Nicole. Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. I think the presentation we just got is a demonstration of what a great asset EDA 2030 is to our community.
Good point.
Tony and I were at the meeting, too. It was very well ran, very well. That subcommittee really did a neat job. That survey they put out and stuff, it was good. Reports. We need to hear from the Finance Committee, please. You going to be running that?
I will take the lead on that.
Brad wants one.
Bring for everyone.
I printed one out.
John?
Got one extra.
We're okay then.
So just to kind of go over the financial statements for the month of April. For the Lake District on the balance sheet, the Lake District experienced a $100,125 decrease in cash assets from March month end, primarily due to the IHFA joint venture agreement termination payment. No change on the receivables and the other assets. We had a change in our Lake District 2016 series note reserve account. The account balance was reduced by $82,991, which was taken back into our general fund. As you recall, the bank was willing to do that based on outstanding principal. They're going to reduce the amount of reserve needed. So this was the first time they did it. They're going to do that annually. So that money has been put back in the general reserve. On liabilities and fund balance, mortgages and notes payables, line item decrease of $5,917 for April. It represents a standard month of debt service. And pretty much all of the liability parameters are either unchanged or normal for the month, including a 2% credit to the due to arts line item due to the April county increment check. On the P and L, the Lake District received $61,969 in tax increment from the county in April. The Downtown Association partnership line item value of $15,625 reflects the first 50% payment of the fiscal 17 event contract. The special project reserve line value of $209,750 reflects the payment made to IHFA per the 823 North 4th Street Property Joint Venture Termination Agreement. All other P&L expenditure items are in line with a normal operating month. Shifting over to the River District. On the balance sheet, the River District experienced a $25,735 increase in cash assets from March month end. All liability and fund balances parameters are standard for the month. And on the P&L, the River District received $34,484 in tax increment revenue from the county, and all expenditure line items are typical for a normal operating month. So, pretty standard month, except for the Lake District, where we had a little bit of movement on certain parameters. And if you have any questions, be happy to address those. If not,
Seeing none.
I'll go ahead and share the payables. We kind of have a large payables sheet to kind of review today. So for payables for Elam and Burke, we have a payable of $3,325.30 for general legal counsel and work in our Lake District and River District. On the Holly Troxel front, we have a payable of $3,495.50, once again for general legal counsel and work in our Lake District and River District. Summit Environmental, Inc., we have a bill for $4,918. This was for asbestos removal for two buildings that were demolished here recently, the 612 North Park Drive and the 630 North Park Drive. Cannon Hill Industries, we have a payable of $26,360. This was for the demolition of 4 properties on North Park Drive, 516, 612, 626, and 630 North Park Drive. That was for $24,000. And the Cannon Hill charges $2,360 for testing of the buildings for asbestos. The next payable is for the Memorial Field Grandstand analysis by Miller Stauffer. That was for $15,000. That's what the board approved for that analysis. The next payable is for $730. This is for the Southeast Way roadway revitalization project, the design element. We're kind of closing that out. We don't have a whole lot left to spend on that $250,000 commitment, so we're kind of getting close to the end on that. The next line item is for the construction payments for the Southeast Way roadway revitalization. The first one is for Welch Combers Engineers. It's for the construction phase services, $29,600. And the first contractor payment to Tom Laviere Equipment and Excavation Incorporated for $186,983.78. As you recall, the board budgeted $4.56 million for this project, so we're starting to get our first invoices coming in. And finally, the final set of payments is for the downtown parking structure project. The first element is for the Miller Stauffer design fee of $15,000. As you recall, let me back up, the board approved $350,000 for this initiative, $300,000 for design and $50,000 for other expenses. So the $15,000 from Miller Stauffer is for the design out of the $300,000, and we have an invoice here for reimbursable expenses of $1,056 for a total payment of $16,056. So all told, when you add them all up, it's $286,468.58.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman? Tony, we're 7 months into our budget year. Are we in good shape on our professional services budget?
No, we are not. So as you recall, back when several months ago, we're going to have to amend our budget. and that will be happening here as we kind of set our new budget. So we'll have to amend the fiscal 2017 budget because of the land acquisition that we did for the parking garage and all these other professional services projects that we've done that weren't quite budgeted properly for. We have the funds, we just don't have them in the budget, so we're going to have to take some out of cash reserve and move things around. That will be coming to the board in June.
Okay, all right. So next month?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to have I proposed to the Finance Committee, and I think the Finance Committee agreed that we would have a budget workshop in June at this board meeting, at the June board meeting. So we'll kind of bring everything together and kind of get a look at the amended Lake District budget as well as the new budgets for the Lake and River District for fiscal 18.
Any other questions, comments?
Chairman, I move we approve the financials and the payables for the month.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor to approve both the financials and the payables? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Excellent. Next report, parking.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Jordan.
we had a very good parking committee meeting yesterday, as you probably noticed, and hopefully you agree. And we covered some good ground. They're fast-tracking the design of this, and so I think there may be some discussion at our joint council meeting about some of the items, but, so it's moving forward. If you have anything to add, Tony?
Yes, the only thing I would add is that the Miller-Stauffer design team has visited with the city's design review committee. They had two meetings with them, and they have been given a green light by the design review committee to move forward with the design as proposed. The only input that the design committee had basically was to see if there could be some way to architecturally break up the upper levels, the look of the upper levels of the parking facility, maybe with some public art pieces or some type of texturing, just to kind of give it a little more pizzazz as you're looking at it. They really liked the street level treatments. They were very impressed with the design overall, but if they were to add anything, they just say maybe if you can look at those upper decks and maybe do something to break up that kind of linear look, that would be great. But there's no conditions on moving forward. So they were very impressed and very happy to give the team a green light.
And I think that puts us just a little ahead of schedule, too. So I know we're trying to get this started by this fall, so.
Mr. Chairman, do we still have that space, that 1,000-square-foot space that's in the garage in the design right now?
Yes, and as Brad alluded to, that will be discussed at the workshop, kind of chatting about that.
Yeah.
Because I had the opportunity to go last week with my son to an Urban Land Institute meeting in Seattle, but we had breakfast with the Boise crew. And they really strongly recommended having a presence there, having some type of, 1,000 square foot, just having some activity there. I know there's been talk back and forth, and a lot of people are really averse to mixing the public and the private, but they really strongly suggested that that was a good feature to have some type of retail space, and so they strongly suggested that.
I agree with them on two fronts. One is from an urban planning and just the dynamics of how downtown works standpoint, it's good to have activity, and whether it's retail, it doesn't have to be retail, could be office, could be professional, anything like that.
Right.
Could be a coffee shop, but it's good to not have a blank space where nothing happens on the street for an entire block. So it's good to have some kind of activity going on. Secondly, if you have people that are working there and there's any undesirables in the garage, causing problems or peeling out on their tires or making racket or something, then there's somebody there to watch it and call the police and report something. And I think just the fact you have people there probably limits the chances of something like that happening.
And then, Mr. Chair, the other thing too is that, and I know this isn't in Ignite's budget, this is something that the city is going to have to look towards funding, but cameras, in my mind, are critical. We need to find a way that on our opening day, when we open that parking garage, that we have cameras there. I think that's important. And I really think we strongly need to look at gates, to have gates coming in and out. I know there's some concern. What happens if somebody comes down and they don't have payment and they've got the gate there? And Well, in that instance, maybe there's a number, and whether you have security or some type of security service that has to come over and service that. I think that's something that we have to figure out. But in my opinion, anyway, gates are something that we should strongly look at. I don't know that you always want to have that free in and that free out of that parking structure. So a couple of things that we probably just need to take a look at. And again, we understand that that's not in what Ignite is funding. The city's going to have to look at funding that.
Those were all talked about, and
Yep.
we look forward to talking about those at our
Are the
workshop.
cameras budgeted in there, or?
I don't think so. But that was discussed, and I don't think there's any decisions made on the gate. I think that's wide open for discussion, and we talked about that. And I think also, one issue that came up when we were talking about the security cameras, there's inadequate fiber between the city hall and the parking structure. So that's a separate issue for the city's tech people, and I don't know anything about it. It's just something that came up that has to be studied, so.
I'm not so sure that you need the connection between City Hall as far as fiber goes. You need to have the security cameras so you can go back and check there. We certainly don't have anybody monitoring the cameras, right? I think that is something where you can go back, that if something did happen, you've got something on tape, that this whole system may be self-contained inside the garage itself, and that you don't have to have fiber connected to it.
Well, that's a good point, and that was talked about too, that maybe you just have a system just for the structure, and however those work, they re-record every week or whatever, and if an incident happens, you can go
back and,
review the cameras and
Yeah.
make pull a recording of it, yeah. So that, yeah, that's a good point. We talked about all those things.
Deanna?
Well, Steve, do you recall, isn't there a fiber going up 4th Street?
There's fiber, but we were told it's
You mean
inadequate.
that's owned by the city?
Yeah, I remembered.
Sam is in our
Over time,
parking
the idea
committee.
was to get the fiber in the city's hands, so we weren't paying rent on fiber. And so that was one of the purposes of putting fiber up 4th Street and getting it to the
Fire station,
fire station and even connecting, I think, with the county.
yeah.
Sam from the city is on our committee, and he was telling us that there's no strands left in the fiber to
Oh,
use.
so it's full, but we didn't
I know,
make it big enough, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Maybe something that we really want to look at as part of this project, though. Over the long term, fiber is important, and it saves money in the long run. So it may be
Yeah.
something we'd want to really examine as the opportunity to maybe upgrade the fiber. And I don't know enough about fiber to know whether it means another line or what, but as long as we're, talking about it, I think we should really talk about it in depth.
I know
Maybe
nothing
make
about,
some decisions.
I know nothing about fiber, but it was brought up, and I guess that's gonna be a city issue on what to do about that fiber. I thought of one other thing too. We had some discussion too on, charging stations and so forth for electric cars. And right now, the feeling is maybe that's a little off in the future, and it's a little difficult to predict exactly what we're going to do, but I think the direction, though, is to have the conduit and everything roughed in so that it's there, and when we figure out what's needed and what to do, as many things as possible will be roughed in so that this is set for the future needs.
We should jump on that comment, Brad. Probably contact Avista. So they're doing that in Spokane downtown right now. And I think that's spot on.
Yep.
And I think just judging by the number of people that are already driving electric cars in this town, it makes a lot of sense.
They're also going to get a hold of the biking community and talk about if they want to, there's, because of the expense of, or the cost of bikes now, so also if they want to have some kind of a protected bike storage area or for individual bikes. They have
That's smart as well.
to be a pay thing, but
It seems like there's nothing anymore, including bicycles, an example, that they haven't figured out how to make very expensive.
very expensive, so, okay? Anything else about parking? It was good. It was a good meeting. Executive Director's Report.
Mr. Chairman, first item is I'd like to invite Bill Greenwood to come up and visit with the board about the Memorial Park final design concept. I have that up there if you want to pop it up there, Bill, as a graphic.
Perfect, thank you, Tony. First, I wanted to thank all of you personally as the Park and Rec Director, your commitment to parks and trails. You've been very instrumental in a lot of things that we've done, and I just want to give you thanks for that. Oops, that's the wrong one, sorry. That's mine.
That looks like more of a park.
So, Tony, is this the one that was from last night?
That's the one that y'all sent me. Not the one from last night.
Okay.
Did it
well,
change?
Excuse me, I'm going to put a different one up there because I want to talk about a few different elements.
Bill, take a look at the folder that says temp items. It's probably in there.
Thank you, voice of God.
Jeez, it was.
So we came before you back in December. I received approval from council December 20th for you to finance this plan here. I went to them and they said, great, we want to participate with Ignite. The next day, I came back to you on the 21st, and it was near Christmas. I think you were feeling rather generous. And you wanted to go ahead and fund these ad alternates, which brought the number to 1.5. I had not gone back to council for that approval until last night. One of the reasons I did not go back to council as of yet until last night was because we were playing around with the design. And you recall, we had shared with you a couple different times some design changes. And we had actually gone, last time we had met, had gone back to this design. But in that, we saw there was value in the rotation of the field, and we continued to try to work that design over. And a few Fridays back, Phil Boyd, Scott Cranston, myself, and Del Hatch spent many hours together and had come up with this design. I like this design a lot. Council approved this design last night. And the things that I did not like about the previous design is how that parking lot thumb kind of came down here and took up the park space. What we did, in essence, is really just move the sports courts that was in this location over and dropped it into the park. What that did was create really a central hub around the pavilion and brought everything closer. The skate park got closer and it became more centered. And so that's the design that we're wanting to move forward with.
So we are rotating the field now.
We are rotating the field. And there were some advantages to that, and Mr. Stauffer talked about that. And I didn't have any objections to the rotation of the field when we last met. It was just the way that that rotation affected park use. And I think we've satisfied my concerns.
Will the home runs land in the sport courts or the parking lot?
Depends on if you're left-handed or right-handed.
Bill, going back, I remember the one thing we talked about when we were gonna do a rotation on the field was the lighting cost was the big question that we were
That was an
talking about
additional
last time.
28, I got corrected on that. It was $28,000.
Oh.
Three poles can stay where they're at,
That's
and 3 poles have to be replaced.
great,
Or one needs to be replaced and they're just being relocated.
good.
And you still have plenty of parking spots?
The parking spots, I counted them up, they're very similar. Phil's guys and my count were a little different. I think I counted these as doubles. These are pull-through parking for larger RVs and buses. Where my count was 146. That's similar to what we had previously, and we will still satisfy the county's need.
Looks fantastic.
Yeah, I really like this, and I apologize. I mean, it just changed so many times, but really, we were trying to do our darndest to give everybody the best bang for their buck.
Bill, I appreciate you doing that, because I left our meeting last month thinking we maybe missed our opportunity to turn that.
Yeah, absolutely, Denny. I'm real pleased with it. And I think this was really the brainchild of Scott Cranston. We were teasing him a little bit about calling it the Cranston Plan. But it works really well.
That's what happens when you have great minds in the room.
Scary, isn't it?
Nice. Questions or comments?
Timing now, so what's the next step?
It will go out to advertise this month. We will go back to council near the end of June for their approval of the approved bidder. We'd like to break ground the 5th of July. The only, and we'll be done in October. The only stipulation we have with the county was that we complete their parking lot by November, I think it was 1. It might have been 30, I've forgotten, but we'll make that, no problem.
Deanna?
I really think you've done a great job in terms of putting this in place. I particularly like the buffer areas that you put in place also. I think the residential along there,
Here?
all due respect to Mr. Murphy, that residential will act as a buffer from the noises of the park
Right.
to the neighborhoods, kind of separating the two, so that you won't have quite so much noise from the events going on there bouncing over into the neighborhood.
Right.
It
and this is-
also gives, and you know, Urban Renewal has purchased a good share of that, but the rest of it's all BLM land. So that's adds huge value to our parkland.
Absolutely.
Inventory of the BLM land.
It really
that
does.
We've been able to acquire through the, and the BLM has looked at this and they're all in?
Yes, they were involved in, again, this is the plan that they saw, but the other additions, or renditions rather, they've seen these all along. And so the elements within the park itself, from this to this are the same. They've just shifted around the board a little bit, and they're okay with it. And the buffering you were talking about, this is nice in here. We'll plant this. We were able to get a little more distance here, so we'll have more of a berm. So we can kind of help soften that a little bit with some buffering and some more planting. And one of the things I just want to make note of, that these trees that are the light color with the crosshairs kind of in them, these are existing trees. There's about 50 that are going to be used within the project that are remaining.
Anybody else?
No, I just think the team's really done a good job taking their time and redesigning some pretty underutilized space in our
Yeah,
town.
it's
so.
going to be fabulous. I'm really excited about it.
Those look like valuable lots there.
Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next item under my report is the Memorial Park financing agreement with the city. My understanding that the city agreed to the financing agreement last night at the council meeting. Basically, it's it's an agreement similar to the Southeast Way financing agreement the board approved last month. Basically, the agency agrees to pay up to $1.559 million that you just saw on the slide for development of the Memorial Park cost elements that Bill just went over. An agency board member and/or the agency's executive director shall be a member of the project implementation team, and we shall approve all construction draws. It'll be the same process where, once the contractor is chosen, he'll build the oversight team, the engineering team. They'll approve it. They'll send it to the city will approve it. The city will send it to us. We'll approve it, and then we will pay the contractor directly, just like we're doing on the Southeast Way project. Our approval and signature will be a prerequisite for any funds being distributed. We will have the ability to hire any consultants that we'd like, if needed, to kind of help with the project. And that's basically the main points of the agreement. Any questions? If not, we need a motion to approve that agreement.
Second.
I move to
Moved
approve
and
the
seconded
financing
to,
agreement.
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries for the financial agreement with the city, Memorial Park.
The next item is North Park Drive Initiative 2 agenda items. I'd like to invite Phil Boyd with Welch Comer Engineers to kind of come up and give an update to the board on the first element, which is a land exchange update, and then talk about the subdivision contract.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm going to use the presentation that Bill just used. Hopefully I can grab it right there. Okay. As the board might remember, the first step in the process for completing the land exchange was the vacation of the Garden Avenue right-of-way, which has made its way through City Council. You guys might have seen this in the City Council meeting. That's been completed. We're kind of waiting for some of the documents to show up from the city. Once we have the documents in hand, the next step will be the boundary line adjustment and then swap of some deeds. So we'll be back hopefully next month with the deed swap in hand. One of the things the next item on the agenda is the subdivision, which is those 10 lots that you see there. So the first thing, in order for you to be able to subdivide the properties, you need to first own it all. So we're prepared to start working on that, anticipating that you are in fact going to swap deeds with the city of Coeur d'Alene. A couple of quick notes why I'm here. You might notice the lot's got a little different configuration in here. Bill mentioned earlier when we were working on the Cranston option here, one of the things, this alley used to continue on in this direction, and these lots were very perpendicular to the alley. And you can envision if that line is extended out to there, it starts to make it very narrow in here because of this berming. And the play area just got a little bit smaller in here. And so we kicked this alley over a little bit, made these lots slightly wider to still maintain the 6,000 square feet. They're not quite 120 feet deep that I know Commissioner Jordan and Mayor Widmeyer liked. But we believed it was a good balance for what we were achieving there, because I think, as Commissioner Jordan mentioned earlier, these are very nice lots right here. So I wanted to point that out, because if the next item on the agenda is approved, we're going to start moving forward with that plat layout.
How deep are they?
This one is 105 to right back in here.
And how about the one to the left of it?
This one is about the same. And you might remember that there's a slope along here too, so it topographically makes them fairly not as deep. Once you have that slope in there, that doesn't preclude the property owner from going in and building a retaining wall at the bottom of the slope, because they would own the property and they could make them deeper. But it's a little bit of a balancing act here, and I just wanted to make sure I pointed it out to the board.
Deanna?
Phil, I know you've been working on this, but for somebody that can't see those little letters, that yellow area is the realigned skateboard park.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's behind the residential.
Yes, and I can quickly just address some of the things. The skateboard park used to be a little bit further in this area. We've pulled it forward. This reconfiguration allowed us to put the skate park closer to the picnic shelter here. We still have some extensive berming in here, 5 to 6 foot high berms that will be landscaped with the purpose of trying to buffer the sound from the skate park and the picnic shelter and the sport courts from these new parcels. A couple other details just to hit in here. The play area that you see here was pushed closer. The plaza area is larger. The sports court got a little bit smaller, and the futsal got a little bit smaller. Futsal is a little bit of it doesn't have a specific dimension to it. These courts are still tournament-sized courts, because that was, the pickleball community is very active and passionate, and they have a very specific court size that they desire. Futsal folks, the court size can vary a little bit, so we made them a little bit shorter in this dimension, so we'd have a little bit more green space in here. Back to the softball question, the distance from home plate to that parking spot is 325 feet. And I understand that you have to be a pretty good slugger to get a ball to go that far. So the field dimension is 320 to that fence line, or 300 feet to the fence line. And you can see it's clipped there a little bit. There will be tall fencing that starts at the grandstand and continues around to that point. So it'll protect the shorter length of the field there.
So, Phil, what's the dimensions on the alley? How did that wind up?
It's 20 feet wide. And one of the, just another detail there, to drain the alley, the city of Coeur d'Alene is going to provide a drainage easement to themselves because the alley will be a tract. But the drainage will actually end up on the other parcel of property. It's not an ideal situation, but it's just, there's not a good way to drain this alley cost effectively. And trying to be as reasonable as we can. You know, Ignite is acting as a developer and you don't want to spend excessive money if you don't have to. So one option is to hard pipe the whole system, put an inverted V in the alley, hard pipe the whole system, but that just accumulates cost. And as we work through this, this is going to be a green strip at the toe of the mound there, and it seemed pretty logical to just make that a little bit of a swale, and we worked through that with Bill, and he found it agreeable. So that alley will eventually have a drainage easement on the neighbor's property, which happens to be themselves.
I'm trying to recall, is that a public alley, or will that be a private one owned by the homeowners?
It's intended to be a public alley.
All right. Well, that makes more sense to have the drainage easement than if it's a public alley.
Yeah.
And I take it in that green space, there might be a few feet of room where snow could be shoved over there.
There is, I'm off the top of my head, I want to say we have a 6-foot distance from the edge of pavement to the toe of the berm.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And some of the other things that the board has discussed before about putting building envelopes, that's been a topic of discussion both here at the foreground neighborhood meetings that the mayor and Bill Greenwood and I have attended, and planning department has asked us about it, and we intend to include those as the plat moves forward.
Can we review those before it's finalized?
Yeah, there's two parts to the process. There'll be a preliminary plat, which will come back. We can just come and make a presentation here and a final plat.
Can you explain what the building envelope means, please, for the public?
Sure. The building envelope just essentially defines beyond the zoning where you're allowed to build your home, and it's articulated on the, it's really not the face of the plat, but it is on the dedication page of the plat. It's shown on the face of the plat, but the dedication limits the building envelope of where you can build it. There's a couple of reasons to do that. One is size and location of the homes. The other is the trees, and as you guys know, there's quite a number of very nice trees in the area. The property owner can, I guess, always choose to cut down their tree, but we're going to attempt to adjust the homes to some extent to avoid cutting down some of the larger trees there, which would hopefully not give them a reason to cut them down.
This is also to alleviate some of the concern of building all the way maybe to the sidewalk in the front, so.
Yes, yep. And I think there are things that are moving forward already in the Fort Grounds neighborhood. We're just maybe ahead of that process.
Just take that question out of there.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to building envelopes. Just before this gets too far down the road, I think the board should see what you're proposing.
Yeah, and I think we can do a little exhibit of each parcel with the trees and show where it might go, and you guys can adjust them.
I don't know how elaborate you have to get, but it just, so that we can kind of review what you're looking at there, so.
Further discussion, comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to say that now that Dave Patzer is retired from softball, those cars can breathe a little easier.
Yeah, that's true.
On there, because he's
He's
the only
left-handed?
guy can reach 325.
Yeah, I don't want to see the city have a lot of liability there, so that's good.
Shall I hit the next one? The next item on your agenda is the proposed professional services agreement for completing the subdivision. And as I mentioned earlier, we previously had a an agreement with Ignite to do the vacation, the land swap, portions of a little bit of the boundary work. This, and the idea is there's no point in moving on to a subdivision if the vacation doesn't occur and the land transaction doesn't occur. Now that those things are underway, we're moving forward, we're proposing to complete the preliminary and final plat, and that's the agreement that's in front of you now for your consideration. I'd like to answer any questions about it.
I can give a brief overview for everybody. So this next overture is for $17,100. It's divided into two tasks. Task one is a preliminary plat, as Phil referenced, and it involves meetings and project coordination management, topographic survey, boundary survey and resolution, base map preparation, preliminary plat map preparation, and preliminary plat submittal and review process. And the fee for that is $9,000. Task two is a final plat, which is set plat monument, which I guess there's quite a few of them, final plat map, and final plat recording, which is $8,100, which totals a $17,100 contract proposal.
That we need a motion on, action on, right?
Yes.
I move to approve the subdivision contract on the North Park Drive properties.
I second that.
Moved and seconded. How about further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
you.
That's excellent.
The final element, or item I have under my report, Mr. Chairman, is the Midtown Bear land parcels green space discussion. See how good I am at this here. Got pretty good. So basically, that graphic shows our Midtown Bear land parcel locations. It's kind of the brown area on the screen right here. Several months ago, I was approached to kind of get an idea of what it would take to turn that area into either temporary or long-term green space. I visited with Bill Greenwood. Bill Greenwood is no longer here, on site to kind of chat with him about that, and I talked to a couple contractors to get an idea of what this might entail. And basically, the recommendation was it would be irrigation along with the installation of sod, with a potential fence on the back side of the alley to keep people from driving on it, with a couple gates to allow, one larger gate to allow a mower in and one smaller gate for pedestrian traffic. And the sod would go to the back of these buildings right here. So that's where the sod line would end, so that would be the green space. Did some checking around, and to do the irrigation and installation of sod is about $20,000. And to put a fence on the back side is about $2,500.
And the fence was just a short see-through.
It was a 4-foot black vinyl chain link fence which was recommended by Mr. Greenwood. So I would like to bring that forward for conversation. The energy behind this is to kind of make it green for some length of time. Is that a short amount of time or a longer amount of time? And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Deanna.
Tony, can I ask where the suggestion that you move forward with this came from?
One of our board members.
One of our board members recommended that we look at it. Okay. I have to say that I have concerns about doing this, and I'm not going to be very popular here, and I realize that, but we bought this property to turn it into residential of some sort, something that would add energy to Midtown. We spent a lot of time over the years, including traveling to areas where residential was in communities and added a lot of energy and life to the streetscape. We've put a lot of money into the improvements in Midtown, including a wide sidewalk on the one side so events could be held along that in the future, along with the landscaping. I think it's important that we start thinking seriously about moving forward with getting this property turned into what we think it should be, as opposed to making a park. If we put a park here, it will be a park. It will be a park forever, because neighbors love parks, and I don't blame them. I love parks. But I think it's important to recognize what the initial goal of this land purchase was. And our initial goal, of course, we worked with Idaho Housing Authority, and that did not work because of neighborhood objections. But I do think there is still opportunity. We've only got 4 more years left on our Lake District, and I think it's important that we really look at how we can move forward. And we spent a lot of money developing this or buying this and putting it in place. I think it's time for us to start moving forward with looking for someone to partner with and develop it into what potentially could be a real asset to Midtown, as opposed to turning it into a park, which I have concerns about doing that, because I think once we do that, why, it will be a park, and we might just as well make it a park. My opinion, for what it's worth.
Okay. Steve?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to respectfully have maybe a little opposite opinion of Deanna, in that this parcel has I mean, let's all be honest, it's been a weed patch for a long, long time. If we look at a parcel on 6th and Sherman, that was on the other side of Parkside, and I know that's a privately owned parcel, but the Downtown Association reached an agreement with who owned it at the time and spent money on making that a green space, and it's been very, very popular and used. I think that this piece of ground deserves to be a green space, even if it's just a couple of years. I understand that this very well could be developed, and probably will be developed at some point in time, to something different. But the Midtown people have suffered through, like I said, a weed patch for a long, long time. I think a green space would be nice. It's a $20,000 investment in sprinklers and fence and grass. I talked with Tony a little bit about it's a possibility to generate some more revenue, maybe from some assets that we have in Midtown to help pay for that. And I think that it would be a good move and a good gesture for the agency, for the Midtown residents and the Midtown businesses, to turn that into a green space.
Mr. Davis?
Mr. Chairman, I agree with the mayor, and we've actually talked about that a little bit this off and on over the years. My only regret is we didn't do it sooner. I do think the dollar amount does cause me a little discomfort, that much for just grass. And I think there might be a way to look at maybe shaving back some of the turf and doing a combination of grass and a gravel surface or something, maybe to reduce the cost. But I agree with Steve that green space in downtown, both that and a little Sherman Park or whatever they call it, they're great gathering spaces. And you know, even though our district's only 4 years and we can still continue to market it, 4 years is a long time in an economic, on a calendar when you're a small business in Midtown. And I think it will generate some enthusiasm and some economic activity in that area. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor.
It would turn out to be a good gathering place, I think, too. Hard to say no to green spaces. There's so few.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm okay either way on the park. If I think there's more energy to put a park in than I thought there might be on the board. I just say the park downtown, you've got a strong association with the downtown, and so, you know, you have some management of it. I guess would have to decide as far as how well this is utilized, what there'd be for management. They've never gotten a really good association off the ground at Midtown, but, you know, longer term, I guess, with only 4 years left in the district, if it's the will of this board to make that a permanent park, that's one thing. Maybe it's a temporary park. But we've got a really good economy going on again. We haven't had that for a number of years. And if we want to get something that creates activity and puts money back on the tax rolls, I think we should either decide, you know, whether or not we want to do an RFP and see what kind of ideas some entrepreneurs could bring forward here to do some kind of a project there to bring some life and activity back to that land, something that the Midtown neighborhood would agree to, but see what, you know, private enterprise and the entrepreneurs can come up with, you know, in an RFP there. As far as whether that's going to be a permanent park or a temporary park, I guess this board needs to make a decision in one way or the other on that, or if we should do an RFP or not, or make that a permanent park. If it's a temporary park, I guess that's fine too. I think maybe there'd be some ways to bid that out, and maybe cut down the cost of putting that park in there. When you said sod, were you talking sod or hydroseed?
Sod. The recommendation
You're
from
thinking
the
sod.
city and the developer
Okay.
to get it green fast, don't mess around, it's
Well,
gonna
that's
take a
fast,
year or two
yeah.
with seed.
So just to jump onto Brad's comments, I mean, I definitely do not want to sit here tonight and say that this is going to be a permanent park. But I think we have a lot of momentum in areas that we can do. But I completely agree with the idea of, for the nominal, I mean, it's a very small investment, to make some green space that can be utilized by Midtown and other activities. I think it makes a lot of sense. If we were talking about a much bigger budget, maybe not, but I think it does make sense, and I think green spaces are very utilized in town, and our whole goal is to create energy in Midtown, and I think it would be a great way for us to create some energy in Midtown very quickly. My thoughts.
Further discussion? Deanna?
I guess, again, I just have to say, once you make a park, it's a park, so we need to make that have that understanding that folks believe strongly in parks, and I believe strongly in parks. And I do think that it does not have a management group like downtown does for Sherman Avenue Park. Midtown has, over the years, we've tried to get something going to where they would all work together, maybe do a BID. That has not happened, and maybe it'll happen in the future if it changes, but I do think we need to really understand what we're doing. We've had a lot of people standing in front of us for a long time saying we don't want housing, low-income housing, so to speak, in that. And so we did have to give up that direction and that plan, and that's understandable, but we need to really understand what we're doing here. Once you turn that into green space, once you start watering it, that is a park, and so we're talking, you don't make a temporary park. Folks don't give up parks, and I agree with them. You know, so we really need to decide if we want to take the money that we've invested and the time and the energy that we've invested in this area and have a nice park there, and we could certainly do that, have a nice park there. But I do believe, and I've been at this a lot of years, and I understand how people's minds work. They love their green space. I love our green space. But it's important, if we're going to do anything, we need to make the decision. I think the decision we're making here is whether that's going to be a park or whether that's going to be developed. And if we don't go out for an RFP, we don't know what opportunities there are. I think we really should take the time, rather than making a decision going forward with this, I think we should take the time. That's a great parcel of land and has great opportunity. We need to really look at what can be done with it besides a park, which I say parks are wonderful, but I also know neighborhoods. Neighborhoods say, that's our park. You don't put anything on it. That's our park. So that is a decision we have to make here today. And I think that's what we're doing. If we decide this is going to be a park, then I think we can go forward with this. But you don't do temporary parks. They just don't happen. Once something's a park, it's a park. And so I think that that's what will happen here. I think we will see, there was a recommendation to the Arts Commission that the buildings there have folks come in and paint graffiti or whatever murals on them. So that's just part of this, developing this into a park, and that would happen. I was opposed to that on the Arts Commission, not because I'm opposed to murals, but because I'm concerned that we're going to turn that piece of land into less than it could be to really long-term benefit Midtown. And I think we spend a lot of time and energy and money in Midtown. I would hate to see us walk away from it now. And in essence, if we make this a park, that's what we're doing.
Brad?
Well, Deanna's got a lot of good points. I guess all I would say, I'd like to explore whether we want to do something else with this. I think we're into the time period now where we should decide, do we have any energy to do an RFP and see what entrepreneurs and private enterprise could come up with on that land. I just want to see something that's best for the Midtown community. I've lived here my whole life. I've seen Midtown through the years, and I want to see what's best for the whole Midtown community. if what is best is parkland there and the community would embrace it and take care of it and utilize it and make it a gathering place, then I'm fine with that. If it's just something so there's not tax credit housing there, I don't think that's the right reason to put a park in. And I know back in the day, when we had dozens and dozens of neighbors down here protesting the tax credit housing, a number of them said, well, just leave it bare. Put a park in, do anything but tax credit housing. So I don't think this should be just something as a stopgap and, you know, just so there's something there. But if this board deems it's worth the money to put the temporary park in and we're going to do something else, I'm fine with that. I just want to see what's best for Midtown. But I think if it's a permanent park, there's got to be some kind of a consensus that community wants it and they're going to love it and embrace it and utilize it and make that a real gathering spot that's great for Midtown, or we go the RFP route, and we may not get anything in RFP, but we at least explore what private enterprise and entrepreneurship could come up with some kind of a really neat project that the neighborhood would embrace there, that would bring lots of activity there, and I don't even know what that would be, but who knows, so I'm okay whether it's, if this is worth the money for a temporary thing, and there's the will to do that, I'm okay. I know what Deanna says, there's not a lot of times temporary parks are permanent parks, but it should be something that community embraces, not just something that turns into a park that's a maintenance problem and a policing problem and so forth there.
Further discussion?
So what do we do?
I would make a motion to approve the expenditure to put grass, irrigation, and the fence on those bare lots.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Well, I just really didn't want to vote on making a permanent move, so can I abstain?
Well, does a park mean it's permanent? I mean, I know
Well,
Deanna says that, but I mean, I'm sure
yeah.
there's difference of opinions of that also.
Because I just thought it was up for discussion. I didn't realize we were making a motion.
I just think it's time that we did something up there. I mean, we talk about an RFP, and I'm gonna be a little critical in that we kind of have just turned our back on doing, since the housing company pulled out, we've kind of turned our back on it and haven't had any motion. Then we finally get motion to do something, which I'm gonna respectfully disagree with Deanna. I think this can be a temporary green space. I don't call it a park, I call it a green space. And I just think it's about time that we did something in Midtown. And just because we plant grass, and I understand your point, Deanna, that people are gonna say, oh, I love the grass, and then you're gonna put something on it. Well, then when it comes to that time, we're gonna have to make the tough decision and say, we have a fantastic development. This is what this project this project fits what we wanted to do here, and we're moving forward. I don't see this as making a decision on a permanent park. It's grass, and it's been weeds now for a long, long time. If you were to go up there today, we've got 1-foot-tall weeds up there, and I think the people of Midtown deserve better than that. Even if we go out for an RFP, we're not gonna see anything done there for at least a couple years.
Yeah, can I jump on the comments? I guess where I'm at with this is I look at it no different than the privately owned lot that's next to Parkside, which I fully expect someday is gonna go vertical.
Yep.
And it won't be grass anymore.
Correct.
And that will change. So I 100% would, as I said before, would not get on board approving anything of permanently changing this to park. I absolutely can get on board beautifying our lot that's up there in Midtown to make it not an eyesore for all the public that uses it in this community, and that's the way I see this. So,
I agree with that.
Yeah, don't call it
Okay,
a
we
park,
have a-
call it a green space.
yes.
We have kind of talked about this being temporary and doing an RFP here, so I think maybe even if we were to decide to make this green space, if we go forward with an RFP at this point in time and decide we're going to develop it, I think that would be forestalling or for the fact that folks would think it was gonna be a park forever. We've got 4 years left to make a decision here, and as you say, 2 years, it'd take us 2 years to, was it Steve that said 2 years?
It'll be at least 2 years.
To get an RFP going? Well, I think I would prefer to start an RFP process on that property and make that decision at this time, as well as
Okay.
as the green space thought.
Kind of been holding because of the modern theater proposal also, so I agree with the mayor, is we've, I think, let the Midtown people down with our weed patch.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've reached a consensus, because I agree with Deanna that this should not forestall moving ahead with some development opportunity. I think a follow-up motion would be well-received to just do just that.
And I would be willing to adjust my motion to move ahead with the green space, but also add to that is begins exploring putting out an RFP for development to see what is potentially out there.
Want that in one motion?
A second.
I agree to that change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tony, what's our agreement on the Modern Theater?
We have really no agreement with Modern Theater.
That time ran out. That time expired.
Okay.
What, just real quick, Mr. Chairman, so if his motion is to explore an RFP, then that gives us time to look at the legality with the Modern Theater, but it's not looking good.
We have no
So I think the mayor made some great points. I mean, you know, that's all I can say. You made great points, Steve, about the people in Midtown and so forth. And so I think I'm hearing what I was concerned about. Either I'm fine with a green space, a park, whatever the consensus is here, but I just want to do something. So I think that's great. I'd just like to get some movement forward. So I think it's probably, you know, Midtown is probably worth the money to put a green space in there and make that nice looking for the time being, or
Is the,
wherever it goes in the future.
we have a Midtown ad hoc committee, didn't we?
I think we can revive it if it.
Revive it and to have them explore and kick off the RFP process.
You could look in the ancient
That
history
could be
file
part
and
of
try and
the
find that.
motion.
Yeah, I have no problem with what Steve said. My concern all along has been, I want to be certain that we move forward with something that adds value to Midtown. And I agree, it's a weed patch. So the revised motion I'm comfortable with.
Okay.
But I do think that we do need to start moving. Let's get
Right.
rolling, let's get
Okay.
started on it. If we're doing that at the same time, then the perception, I think, of the folks will
Correct.
be.
Very true. If the
And
motion's together.
obviously, we take into account the neighborhood, or we would have gone forward with the Idaho housing proposal. So obviously, in this RFP process, we will take into some account there, but I think it's important that we do
Okay.
it this way.
I just want to decide something. I want to move towards deciding something.
Perfect. Can you read back
Yeah.
the motion, please?
Well, I will give it a shot. See what our commissioners think. So motion by Commissioner Whitmire, seconded by Commissioner Davis, to establish a green space, not a designated permanent park, and to explore an RFP for development of the site.
Kicking off the
Good enough?
Midtown ad hoc committee again. Perfect.
Is that good enough?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
That's all I have, Mr.
Thanks for
Chairman.
your input on that, Amy. That's excellent. Thank you. Any further on that?
I'm done with my report.
I'm going to kick off the board commissioner comments. Tony was digging around in the dusty archives and found a document that stated that Danny Davis started here in March 2005. Tonight is his last board meeting, so that's what, 12 years?
To the month.
12 years, how many thousands of hours that you've donated, and those are non-billable hours, by the way, but volunteering for thousands of hours for 12 years and stuff, it's greatly appreciated. That is awesome, and you're awesome, and we appreciate that. And we passed the hat, and we got about 75 cents. Then we said that you're buying the first round at the Daft Badger afterwards, and we have a really nice gift certificate here for the fly
like that.
fishing
I
shop
like
for
that.
$350.
Oh, my goodness, that's too much. I told Tony I didn't want a plaque.
You're not getting a plaque.
Thank you very much. So,
Can't get out of here with our praise. Your unselfishness and everything was just, it's inspirational, so.
well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been very much my privilege to have been a part of this organization for all those years. And one of the reasons I didn't want a plaque is because I don't need one for my wall. But there are reminders all around town of the work that I've been privileged to have been a part of. on this agency. And you just look right out this window, and there's a huge one right out there. And we have lots of great other opportunities coming down the pike, and I'm very confident that the agency and the city and the public are going to take a good advantage of those opportunities. And boy, what this group does is just extremely valuable to the long-term livability of our community. And I'm very proud to be a Coeur d'Alene resident, have been for almost 40 years now. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional comment?
Thank you, Danny.
Any other board commission comments?
I just wanted to say that, you know, it's, when you talk to anybody about Denny Davis, there isn't, unlike me, there isn't anybody that says a bad word about Denny and about what a
very true.
great guy he is and all the things that he's done for the community, not only on Ignite, but on so many other things that
Many
he
other
does.
things,
And we are so grateful for all the things that you've done. And if I find anybody that says anything bad about you, I'll let you know, but I haven't found anybody that says that yet.
You're not talking to the right people.
Yeah. But I just, on
Thanks, Steve.
behalf of myself and the city, just want to thank you for all you've done.
Thank you.
Yeah, in addition to agreeing to serve on the board all those years and those thousands of hours, to also agree to be the chairman and all the time and the anxiety and stress that can put on you being the chairman of this. And you've been an excellent chairman. I don't know how we could have
Yes.
had a better chairman. So I thank you very much. It's been great working with you out here.
The ultimate professional. Anybody else? This is a special board commissioner comments because we have also ex-board commissioner comments.
The alumni.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and staff. It's been really a reinvigorating process to sit here for the last hour and a half and watch you all labor through the process of doing good with your task and also keeping in mind the best interest of the citizens of Coeur d'Alene and our surrounding community. But I'm here tonight to also kind of echo what has been said about Mr. Davis. I didn't realize it was that long ago, Denny, that I made that infamous phone call and asked you if you'd serve on the board. And I can't remember if it was the mayor at the time or if it was, Charlie Nipp, our chairman at the time, but somebody asked me, and I didn't say no, if I'd give you a call. And I can remember our conversation. And of course, over the years, you've kind of lambasted me for that, like pledge to you that only costs you about an hour, hour and a half a month of your time. And I publicly apologize for that. But as you all know, that this thing has grown into be a lot more of I guess, an endeavor than maybe it was back at that time. And because of that, it's the successes and the responsibility that have been undertaken. And I wanted to compliment you, Danny. It was a privilege to serve under you, to sit around that table with you for all those years. And I guess for you to rescue me on occasion, I think you and I go to Daft Badger, and I'd erupt, and you'd say, "Okay, Dave, now calm down. Let's take the high road on this. Let's okay. It'd be something in the blogs or in the paper or something to get me fired up." And you'd always take the high road, and you had that calming influence, and I really appreciated that, because the next day I might have said something that shouldn't have been appropriate to represent this group publicly that I would have lived to regret. But I sincerely wanted to thank you for your leadership, your agreeing to serve the community when I made that phone call to you, and also your example. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate your effort to come down tonight.
Thanks, Dave.
Enjoyed working with you.
Anything else? Deanna.
Well, I shouldn't take much time, but I just want to thank you, Denny, for your hours of service and for your loyalty to our community. And you've just been an amazing person to work with, and I feel very honored to have had the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Deanna. Much appreciated.
Got a stamp on many things around town. How about our second option for public comment? Any more public comment out there? Seeing none, we need some action for executive session. Motion, I think.
I'd motion that we go into executive session per Idaho Code 74-206.
Subsection 1B, subsection 1C.
Oh, I missed those. I'm sorry. That was in the fine print. Subsection 1B and 1C.
Motion?
Second.
Moving seconded. How about roll call?
Woodlander.
Yes.
Metz. Widmeyer.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Davis.
Aye.
Truffle.
Aye.
Hoskins.
Aye.
Chapkus.
Aye. We're in executive session.
What will we
And
do
that's a
without
wrap.
lawyers at the meeting?